Welcome to the Every Gym podcast. I'm Andy Brady, joined today in studio by the Honorable Dr. Pastor Jim Thomas.
Hi, Andy Brady. I became honorable.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
The less than honorable Rick Hobbs.
Afternoon.
And Perla Dunn. No intro needed.
No
Just Perla. That's
Perfect.
good. That's
Perla
good for
Dunn.
this.
Is that where we're going with that?
Yeah, that works. Straight from the pastor.
Yeah, that's right. Cool.
That carries weight. Today we are recapping our church's most recent mission trip to Mountain View Bible Church in Colorado Springs. Okay, we're going to play a game. It's called False Dilemma. There are two options. You have to give quick answers. You must choose one. No conditions. Okay, just quick fire answers. Pastor, you get the first one.
Good.
Ketchup or mustard?
Ketchup all day long.
Ketchup all day. Rick, pants or shorts?
Shorts.
Shorts every day. I've seen you in 9 inches of snow wearing shorts last week. Let's go. Perla, famed Peaster Greyhound tennis player, famed Weatherford College pickleball legend, pickleball or tennis?
Pickleball.
All day, let's go. And we have pickleball on Thursday nights at the college building. Pastor, burrito or taco?
Same thing in different forms. Burrito.
Did you say Frito?
I said burrito.
Okay.
Frito pie. I'm going to go with that one.
Frito pie.
Burrito.
All right,
Burrito.
Rick, when you're at the movies, popcorn or candy?
I don't go to the movies.
If you were
Okay.
to go to the movies.
No, okay. Popcorn.
Popcorn
Yeah,
with
definitely.
or without butter?
Without.
Wrong answer.
Wow.
Oh,
Lots of
so
salt.
wrong.
Do you want to
Lots
know
and
the
lots of
life
salt.
hack for butter on the popcorn at
Yes,
the
I
theater?
do need to know that.
Dude, I'm serious. here.
Yeah, I'm serious too. I need
Put
to.
a straw in the popcorn.
Oh, that's
Get
brilliant.
your top layer on.
Yeah.
And then use the straw where you pour the butter through the straw, and that will layer your butter.
And that's our podcast for
You
today.
put a
You have
lot of
learned.
thought into
It's the
That is
Reaganomics.
amazing.
It's the trickle down effect, the Reaganomics of movie theater popcorn. But
Wow.
that was free.
So
Looking for sponsors. All right, Perla, hamburger or hot dog?
Hamburger.
Steak or brisket?
I'm going to go steak.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Good answer.
If it's a good steak.
If
You
it's a
said
good
no,
steak. If it's
no
got a-
caveats.
no-
but it's
no
gotta-
caveats,
We were
that's
talking
true.
earlier about
That's
steak.
true.
It's got to be a good steak.
All right, here's our last one, and this one's for Rick. All right. Sharing a hotel room with someone not your spouse, but you both have individual beds, or sleep in your truck.
Sleep in my truck over and over and over.
And if that one felt personal, it's because
It was
that was
personal.
our situation
It
last
was
Saturday.
personal.
All right, so at the time of this recording, we are fresh off of our spring break mission trip to our church partner, Mountain View Bible Church. This is a church that is less than 3 years old. We've got about a 2-year partnership with them where our church offers financial assistance. We send teams throughout the year to their church. They have one staff member, which is just a massive undertaking for a church that runs about 125, 150. And we've sent about 3 trips a year to their church. Here's kind of the first question that we're going to start with Perla, since you're closest. Would you tell us how you ended up on the trip and maybe what it was that you did while you were on this trip?
Yeah. So I went on mission trip last year. And so this is my second time going. And the first one was just awesome. It was my first ever mission trip. I've never done any sort of church trip like that. But it was awesome. So I wanted to go on the second one. And I was part of the outreach team crew.
Mhm.
And we were basically going door to door surveying people about their opinions on the community needs and what their opinions are on church and religion in general.
Mhm.
I learned that Colorado Springs is not a huge town of believers, because in Weatherford it's you go anywhere and pretty much everybody knows of God, but it wasn't like that there. But
That's
we're
good.
going door to door seeing what people's opinions are. It was really cool though.
Nice. When did you find out about that team?
When we got there.
When we got there?
Yes, I was in the back of my mind thinking, I really don't want to do this one, but I had a feeling that it was going to end up that I was in that one. Sure enough, I was.
Will you share, you told me after y'all's first day on Outreach Crew, something that you had been praying and asking God to develop within you.
Yeah.
What was that?
Evangelism.
So you wanted God to develop your evangelism.
Yes.
And then God placed you on a team that did
evangelism.
Okay, look at that. God answers prayers. Very cool. Very cool. What were some of the things that y'all did, or what was some of the observations y'all had as y'all went door to door? Was everybody at home and super happy to answer the door? Was there some resistance, people that were maybe not just neutral but negative? What was kind of the spectrum that y'all saw?
There was definitely resistance. Most doors had no soliciting signs, and we're not going to go to those, or no trespassing or scary dogs, and I'm scared of dogs. And so there were definitely barriers that stopped us, but the people that answered the door, most people that answered the door were already believers looking for a church. Most of them were. And then the second day that we went around walking, I'm glad it was the second day and not the first day, because that would have been really heartbreaking. But people were opening the door, and we'd be like, "Hey, we're here with this church. We just have some questions, wanting your opinions." And we'd be like, "Do we have a couple moments of your time?" And they would just straight up say no. And we're like, "Okay, thank you. Have a good day." And we turn around. So there was definitely more resistance than I was expecting. But rejection therapy is always good. So,
But is it?
what?
But is it really always good?
No.
Were there any instances that like immediately felt like a win?
Oh yeah, there was one where we're walking. It was on our second day, so we're walking down this house or by this house, and there's a man outside, and he didn't seem very nice, but he's outside. They also had a no soliciting sign, so we wouldn't go out there, but he was outside, so we are kind of like, "Hey, how are you?" And he was kind of curious as to like what we were doing, going door to door, and we're explaining to him, and he was like, "Oh, well, my wife is looking for a church. Like, let me bring her out. I'm not from here, but like maybe they've been looking for one." And so he goes inside and he brings out his wife, and so we're talking to his wife and how she's been looking for a church, and she's from somewhere in Spain. I can't remember where, but so she was asking if there was like foreigners and blah blah, looking for more like diversity in the church. And we're like, "Oh yeah, there's plenty of different kinds of people." And then the dad was like, "Oh, I have a pregnant daughter who she started to get super into her faith, and she kind of fell away because she started working on Sundays." And so he went and brought her out, and she's also looking for a home church. And so I was like, "Please come." Like, it was the day that we had our night of worship. So I was like, "Please be coming. Like, it'd be really cool." So hoping that she is able to find a home church at Mountain View.
Yeah, that's really cool. When you were talking to folks, did you feel like, what was their perception of the church? What was their perception of Jesus? Like when you got into conversation, obviously when you got
Yeah.
into conversations with people, what was the vibe around how the people there felt about the church in general, and if you got more specific about Christ?
Yeah. So most people didn't have a very fond view of church.
Mhm.
Most people were like, "I'm a believer, but I don't think I need to go to church to be following Jesus."
Did they ever say why?
No.
Okay,
They
it's just
said
a general statement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then some people had issues in the past with people in the church.
Yeah.
That was something that stopped them, and that's really disappointing that
Mm,
people are what stop people from Jesus. But
yeah.
It's hard.
So there was some church hurt then that
Yes.
went on. And I think, just to define that is, a negative experience with church in the past that has created some type of perception of the church in the present and for the future. And it's just easier not to be a part of that, right? And so that becomes a huge barrier, not only in evangelism, but just even for people who have come to know Christ to be involved with his body again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
That's good. Having gone to Brazil
Mhm.
with Project 70, any overlap in your experience abroad and then Perla and the outreach crew's experience domestically in terms of engaging people that 5 minutes ago I didn't know,
Right.
and now I'm trying to engage them in a spiritual conversation.
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, in some contexts, in both contexts, people are people.
Yeah.
And if many of those in Brazil are churched in the sense that they come from a Catholic background, so they get some church stuff. But we ran into some people who had no context with the church whatsoever. So it is both and.
Yeah.
Many people down there are more open to us because they're Americans and we're speaking English, and so that's a little kind of thing to get them involved in a conversation. Many of the people in the small towns we go to in Brazil have never met an American before.
Yeah.
And so it's that curiosity, right, that leads into that conversation. So that's a little bit different from being in the States where, you can say you're from Texas or whatever, and someone in Colorado goes, "I don't care," or whatever. But
got that one a couple times.
yeah, did you get that one a couple times? Yeah, it's not necessarily a draw for them, but they, but when you do actually enter into a conversation, and then the questions about church or about Jesus or about whatever in a spiritual context, then we kind of find ourselves in common territory.
Yeah.
About who they think he is, and how the church has impacted or not impacted their lives. So yeah, there's some commonality there.
That's good. Rick, you were kind of the Nehemiah to our Ezra. We had, and this is kind of the way my mind thinks of it. Ezra, very spiritually driven, but then Nehemiah's doing a physical work that aids in the people having the spiritual moments with God and being able to safely meet together. Rick, what did your crew do?
So I'm physical, but not spiritual.
That's
Okay.
not what
That's
I'm
what
saying.
I heard.
That's
what
not
I
what
heard.
I'm
Exactly.
saying.
But that's
But I am
okay.
saying the physical's got a
got
spiritual
you.
value to it.
So what was the question again? I'm sorry.
What was your crew doing while we were on the trip?
Our crew were removing windows that probably had been in there from the 60s or the 70s and installing new windows. There
There you
was
go.
24 of them we replaced while
That's
we were
incredible.
there. So
What how did you end up on the trip?
it's a good question. Well, last year when y'all went, we have our tool trailer, which we use in some of the ministries around here, and y'all were needing tools and a way to get them up there. So I learned a little bit about the trip by helping supply that for y'all to get up there. And then you had visited with me about it,
Mhm.
and I was immediately interested in going. In fact, I would have loved to go last year, but that wasn't the case. But basically, I'd thought about it quite a bit since y'all went up there last year. So that's kind of where it started.
But your interest in going on the trip didn't end with you.
No, it
And
didn't.
you were, I would say that God used you as a massive door opener for this trip. And that who else came as a result of your interest a year ago?
Part of this went back to our legacy class, visiting with them about it. And we have, I felt like a lot of couples that would have had the same interest I did. We talked a little bit about our age group, that life changes pretty quickly with us, and planning something out 3 or 4 months ahead of time was sometimes difficult. But open it up to our class. We have a very mission minded class. They love to participate. We've gone all over the state doing stuff. So that interest was there, and I guess me just starting asking the questions, there was quite a bit of interest for some adults to go. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Have both of y'all been on mission trips before? You said you went last year on this trip. Had you ever been on a mission trip before
No,
then?
that was the first one.
How about you, Rick?
Since I was in high school, I
Since
don't
you're-
know
so
how many.
Both domestic and
bunches.
international?
Not international.
Not international,
No,
just
unless you
domestic trips.
consider Canada international. I
Yeah.
guess.
We got a
Legally,
trip going
yeah.
to Brazil this summer.
Yeah,
I had
legally.
to have a passport. Does that
Yeah,
count?
you have to have a passport to get in. So it's
I've been to
international.
Vancouver numerous times, but growing up as a youth and then as a youth worker, we went on. In fact, we did 3 years of trips to Lyman, Colorado with our high school
wow.
groups back in the day. So
Oh, wow.
we'd been in the area.
Did y'all ever get snowed in while y'all were
We
up
did
there?
not in Lyman, Colorado. No, we didn't. So,
That
no.
works.
One of the things I've always thought about as far as missions go, we always think about we're going to help, we're going to serve somebody else, but ultimately, missions is also about our discipleship as well. It's about us being formed as we go. The whole Great Commission idea of as you go, make disciples, right? So you guys did go in this instance this year to help build up that church, to help build up that pastor and his family. But I'm sure God did a work in you as well. Why don't you share just maybe a couple things that God may have done in you on this trip to form you more to look like Jesus?
Well, it was needless to say, as we were getting into this, I could tell pretty soon it was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I mean, I'm a little bit long in tooth now. I know some of the kids, but we're not hanging around with the college kids. That was a little bit of a stretch, but I tell you what, I had a fabulous week. Just from being around the young adults and how impressed I was with them, just about their commitment, how they acted. They were there. They were serious. They were there to do a job, and until they got to drinking some of the
Celsius.
Celsius, we want to
Which I heard you
clarify that
tried.
it says that we were drinking energy drinks. They are only energy drinks.
Only energy drinks.
You had your first Celsius on this trip, correct?
As I said, Keith Warren introduced me to Code Red. Now y'all have introduced me to that, and neither one of them ended well. So, but I also had the opportunity to visit quite a bit with Pastor Darren and had some really great conversations with him. And it really encouraged me to see in his face and his action, his words, how it impacted him. I remember him talking to me about, you know, how much it's changing the culture of their church and on and on. And he goes, I remember him saying, but you are not going to get to see that. And I said, I stopped him. I said, actually, I am seeing it and, you know, in your face and what you're saying. He was so excited. And that really encourages you, and that what you're doing makes a difference. And, you know, there was a lot of things I grew in. I learned a whole lot from them. Yeah. Yeah. It worked both ways.
What about you, Pearl? What
Um,
did God do in you?
okay, so I'm basically repeating Andy's words, but our Bible verse of the trip was considered a great joy. So
Right.
finding the joy in trials and the hardships where I'm like, man, why am I the one that's going through this? Like, this sucks. Like, why can't I have it the way other people do? But it's like, that's like part of my testimony. It's part of the reason. So just having that as a reminder. And then as he was talking about like the community, I have some friendships that were like, what's the word, strengthened while we were there, and that were a lot closer because we were able to have these moments of like having real Jesus conversations and like helping guide each other. So that was really cool. And then also the rejection therapy. I didn't necessarily get a chance to like share the gospel. Like we talked about it, but it wasn't like I presented Jesus to somebody.
Yeah.
But now after going out, I feel more comfortable to where like even at work yesterday, I was like thinking like, how can I be praying for these people? So I start conversations with them, figure out. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm more comfortable in that. So evangelism, prayer, slowly being answered. So
Yeah, that's so cool. You know, and sometimes we divorce our contemporary missions from us doing exactly what the first believers did. I mean, if you go back and read Acts again after this trip and you look at how when they went out, they were there to encourage the church. They were there to be a witness to the lost. Their lives were being formed and shaped, even on the mission field themselves. Community was being built, right? And so what y'all did on this trip was very biblical, right? It was extending the work of the kingdom that started with Jesus and the apostles into the early church, and now 2 centuries later, you know, or 2 millennia later, 2 centuries
I'm
later,
with you.
2 millennia later, it's pastor doing math, folks. 21st century, we're still doing what Jesus called us to do, and not only extending the kingdom through a local church and building them up, but also being formed as we do it, right? And becoming different because of that. I'll never forget being in England one time and working with a church in the south of England. And we ended up not partnering with them, but our time, they didn't have a pastor at the time.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget at the end of our stay, the guy in a British accent, which made it sound so much cooler, right? Looked at us and said, "You have been Paul to us this
awesome.
week." And I didn't know how to respond to that. Because that, you know, to say, well, yes, I have, sounds very arrogant, you know, and putting yourself on par with the Apostle Paul. But he's saying, what he's saying is you're being Pauline. You're being like what they did in those 3 mission trips that we read about in Acts. You're doing that to us, and you've built up our church by being with us. And that's what y'all have done. And Pastor Darren and that congregation are going to be motivated and moved, and the Spirit's going to use what you've done to continue to help that church go forward. And beyond anything that you did just to go on the trip, this is kingdom work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exciting to me. It's great to hear.
It's a great partnership. We go with First Baptist Amarillo. That's strategic on a couple of levels. One, there are a lot of parallels between our church and theirs. They're both established churches. The larger Baptist church in town, not that size makes a difference, but in that there are similarities in our church cultures. Of yes, there are things here, but that's not what we hang our hat on. The love of Christ compels us. Their students are similar to our students that primarily go to a junior college or a college half an hour away, and our ministries share a culture. But Corey and I, their minister, met each other in a church plant. And so going to a church plant like this one, where so much of it is not just lay led, but lay staffed, volunteer staffed, to give them a chance to have worship services where it doesn't rest on their shoulders, where you don't have to get off work and then go have rehearsal and then get stuff, where the people that play in the band or in the sound booth, the head of their security got emotional one night because he's like, this is the only time all year that I get to just worship.
Yeah.
It's a gift that we delight in getting to take before the altar of God, but also to give to their church of reminding them, hey, you labor all year.
Yeah.
Like just this week, 4 nights this week, just go.
In essence, you
Just go.
guys help to give them a gift of Sabbath
Yeah.
and to allow them to breathe. And, you know, one of the things I've seen, because we did a church plant in Portland, Maine, and we saw the same thing. We ran their kids program.
Yeah.
We didn't lead worship because they had a really good band, and we just let them do that. But I preached when we went up there and gave the pastor a week off. What we saw was this breath that the church took to actually, and actually help them pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
To not be so micro-focused on everything that they had to get done to make the day work.
Yeah.
They got to kind of pull back a little bit and go, oh, okay, this is what we're about. And we're not going to lose the plot because someone came in and allowed us to breathe for a minute. And that's beautiful.
Yeah. I love doing that. I want to ask y'all about the worship throughout the week, but I also want to give you a second to come up with your answer. So our rhythm each day, we start with, our day is modeled after Luke 10. We start together, we get our charge for the morning at breakfast, and then we go out into our crews, outreach crew, various work crews, come back for lunch, swap some stories, same thing, hit repeat, come back for dinner, and then we have a worship service each night. The worship is led by, we hired Jonah Cook, who's originally from Northside, now at a church plant in Denver. But then it's filled with students from both ministries. And so then either Corey or myself will preach most nights. There was one night this year different than any of the last 17 years, where Perla alluded to this earlier. We did a night of prayer and worship. And it's, you know, we invite their church to come. And we have some come Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, but they're in school. It's not spring break. They have kids. But I would say on Wednesday night, and I'm not trying to do pastor math here, I would say we had legitimately probably 30 plus people from their church that were there that night. But I want to ask y'all, are there any takeaways that or elements of the worship services that just kind of resonated with you or left an impression? I mean, it was not your normal worship service from what you experienced on Sunday mornings.
Probably not, no.
It was probably a little bit more in line with what you see on our Thursday nights. But Rick, let me ask you this, even though it's outside of your norm, what were your impressions of it?
Well, I enjoyed them. And it was after a long day, it was really good to have it. Yeah. I mean, really, just to sit and just meditate a little bit. And I got my back row, so me and John were good back there. We were locked in on that back row, but I was able to even observe the students, and the worships were wonderful. I loved everything about them. And I like the music. Yeah. So, I would be, well, we won't go there. I'd be in the contemporary service if it was up to me. So there we go. We'll leave that right there.
All right. We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah. That's where we edit the podcast, right there.
I told you I'd say something.
What about you, Perlum?
Okay, so like you said, it's something that I'm used to because our Thursday nights worship is mostly led by our students. Right. But first of all, I think it's cool that it's not like a professional band. Like there's mistakes that it makes, and like that makes it like more personal because I know them, kind of thing. I also sat in the front row, so I got the other side of it. So it's cool. I got to like hear everybody, and like the night of worship and prayer, I've never done anything like that before. So that was really, really awesome. One of my favorite nights ever in life. But I could like hear everybody, and I was like, man, like everybody's like actually into it. Like it's not they're just there because this is their church and they're supposed to come. Like people are actually like enjoying their worship and actually worshiping. It was awesome. There's also one night where our band kind of fell apart a little bit because
of the weather.
Yes.
Yep.
Weather. And so our band kind of changed up a little bit, and they worked all day. I was hearing Andy go around and finding one of the singers and finding the drummer and finding everybody trying to put something together for a different night. But it was still really cool. It was awesome. It was
so Wednesday night, we knew that Jonah would have to leave for work on Thursday. That we knew that ahead of time. What the weather changed is that Jonah wasn't going to make it back.
And tell everybody who doesn't know what happened with the weather, what came in.
Yes, because we were recording this the week after spring break. Yeah. So Colorado Springs got 9 to 10 inches of snow that Thursday. Denver, I believe, had over 30.
Goodness.
And Jonah left Wednesday night to return home to Denver.
Mm.
And he was like, I'm going to do everything I can to get back. And it's like, man, I love you. And I know you think that might be real, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that night, we pray, Corey and I, we just kind of begin to piece together what we have. It's a really cool experience seeing people that have labored all day, then pour themselves out and lead worship each night. Like Perla said, seeing the students, but also seeing them in their work clothes, actual work clothes, not vintage clothes that I bought that look like they work. But we had an electric guitar.
Yeah.
We had a cajon.
That's a drum.
A drum.
Just,
Drum box.
yeah.
And we
yeah,
had a
just
female
defining.
vocalist.
Okay.
And so we're trying to piece together the set based on what they know and what they're comfortable with. We've just lost our acoustic guitar with Jonah and our lead male vocalist, which the guy that stepped in did a phenomenal job. And it was well after 11 o'clock Wednesday night, and I left to go check on something. I came back to the room where everybody hung out and played games, and I heard that Perla suggested we have a church pianist on our trip by the name of Carla, who normally plays in the 11 o'clock service, which is a more traditional set of music. And I was like, oh, that's a fantastic idea. I can't wait to ask her in the morning. So Thursday morning, things get rolling, and we're dealing with some of the changes because of the weather. And we asked her, and she was as honest as could be. It is incredibly out of my comfort zone. These musicians, they learn chords, I learn keys. And I probably messed up one of those terms. But I got an education in the differences in which time frame you learn to play music in.
Interesting.
And
Wow.
so it's like, okay, she goes, but this whole trip's about us trusting God outside of our comfort zone. So if we can get me the thing so that I can learn it, I'll play it.
Yeah.
And so we called Brad back here at the church, our worship minister, and Brad was, all I had to do was say, Brad, can you give me the thing that Carla uses? Because she said it's a different type of paper than some of the other musicians for these songs.
Yeah.
And between them two on the phone and then Nelson, the guy that ended up leading the band, they were able to get all that. And I bet they had a 5+ hour rehearsal that day, which was pretty cool because if you were the group that was doing work in the sanctuary, doing touch-up paint from previous projects, or the crew that was rearranging their chairs for the night, you spent your day laboring just kind of under an umbrella of worship music, but in a way that I would say models Romans 12, 1 and 2, where you had 4 people that were being a living sacrifice that day to be to be found pleasing before God, and they were testing inside the bounds of what God had given them, to discover what is a good, pleasing, and perfect will of God.
Yeah.
It was just a simple, here are our out of bounds. All right, let's work towards this common goal that God's put in front of us.
That's
So
cool.
the fact that we had about 10 students in the room just working all day under that umbrella.
Were you working in the building that day? Did you hear them practicing? And
I
stuff?
went in.
Oh,
I wasn't, but I was going in and out. Listening.
Oh, okay. You heard that.
I was trying to. I went up and talked to Carla a couple of times just to
encourage her. Yeah.
I know she felt.
Did. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, it's all right.
Well, I heard the story. I guess Andy may have maybe when we talked on the phone, you had, about y'all's travel back. You had told me the story, and I went up to Carla Sunday morning at the 11 service. I said, "Hey," she goes, "What?" I said, "I heard you're in a rock band." And she goes, and her response was great. She goes, "Yes, I am." And it was so awesome. It was so awesome.
Perfect. It was one of those things. Here we were dealt this element on the trip that we didn't know ahead of time. God revealed it at the timing that was perfect because it caused us to fall in line with his plan for Thursday night. Carla being up there, the band being different, it was the night that God wanted.
That's cool.
It was the arrangement that he wanted, the way that everyone was engaged with it. It was an incredible night. And then Corey preached that night on Abraham and Isaac and the sacrifice. And all week long was just this theme of testing and trials that have a purpose in obedience to God, and trusting God enough to enter into the trials that he's put in front of us, but then faithfully obeying him through the trials because it has a purpose. It was just a beautiful night to end on, where Corey and I just constantly talked. We've never had a week where the jobs went as smooth as they did. Last year we had students and adults, and granted the windows were different, but in 1 week we did 14 windows, and we thought that was amazing, and it was. Rick's crew did 12 windows on Monday,
Wow.
and so it's like, okay,
I want to kind of, that was one of the things I was hoping to talk about with the crew. I kind of knew in advance from talking to you the purpose of the work, was to model discipleship, and kind of had that concept. So we got started the first morning, and, we're talking about windows that had been in there for probably 80 years. And we began to show them how you got to, with chisels and hammers, you got to rip this stuff out. You're getting everything out that's holding the windows in. And the first morning, John and I were watching, and I had one guy on my crew and 5 ladies. And they were hesitant to get on a ladder. They were hesitant to swing a hammer. And I will say for me, thank goodness, patiently encouraging them and showing them. And the first morning, we were afraid we weren't going to get one window out by lunch. And over the rest of that day, it was amazing to continue to work with them, talk to them. And I think I told you by the end of the day, one of the girls that was afraid to stand on the ladder was standing on it with 1 foot, swinging a hammer, ripping stuff out, like just going to town on it. And it was just amazing to watch that. And then I started thinking about discipleship, just what that community does. I thought about that all week with our age group and that age group.
yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to see legacy through this church, looking back and looking forward. And it was cool to see a community come together that was, 50 years apart.
Yeah.
And it was a great week. I was very encouraged. I had a great time. So anyway.
I don't think you knew this. So we did place. You knew that we did place with our college ministers. Place is simply a form where we kind of see how God has wired us individually and seek to find opportunities where
Assessment-based study,
including our passions and our past experiences to see how God might be wanting to use us now. So we did that with our college leaders over Christmas. And one of the passions that kept popping up was a passion for senior adults.
Really?
And so in December, we have, and yours was one of them, wasn't it?
Really high up.
And in December, it's like, okay, God, do I just give their info to our senior minister or what? But then God planting that seed just so we'd be aware of it. And then in a completely different way, opening the door for us to partner with Legacy Class in this, where you are all able-bodied retirees.
Wait a minute.
No, like
I'm not either one of those.
Of retirement age. Of retirement age. You have the ability to take off when you.
I do. I have that.
There we go.
Yes.
We can
Some
cut
more
out
freedom.
the previous
Some
one.
more freedom. There
You have
go.
more
There you go.
discretionary time,
Yes.
but you have more experience, and you have a longer walk with God than our students do. And here we have a group of students that God is showing us desire to know those things. And the way that you and the ladies from Legacy and Dan and Chris and even John just kind of opened up with them. You helped them. You taught them. You didn't do it for them, which is, often an obstacle that we have to overcome. They saw it, and they saw authenticity in your care for them.
Which Rick's spoken to, how impressed he has been with our young adults, our college students and young adults. Perla, what did you notice in our senior adults that were on the trip?
I'll keep using the word senior adult.
I love them.
What? Hold on. Let me back up.
You get 10% off at Ross
Oh,
on
yeah, we don't
Tuesdays.
get- yeah.
We got to come up with a different term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From our maturing
There you
adults,
go. There you go. Thank you.
our wise.
Well, no, that's all right. That's all
Anyway, Perla.
From our greatest golfers.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Let's just chill out here.
What impressed you, and what did God show you through Rick's age group?
They were awesome. I love them. I was so excited they were Northside people because then I saw them on Sunday and I was like, oh, it's the
that's
ladies
cool.
again. I was so
Yeah.
excited. But they were all just so sweet and so welcoming. I never saw any of them getting frustrated. One of the ladies, Kelly, was helping lead a group that was putting windows in the walls.
Yeah.
And she was like doing awesome at it. I want to be her when I grow up.
There you go.
But they were just all so sweet and so friendly. And every time you spoke to them, it was like they were excited to see you and excited to talk to you.
That's
And it
cool.
was just, they're just really sweet ladies.
That's cool.
And one of our students accepted Christ while we were on the trip, and and it's a student that we've been praying for since we met him in September. One of those four ladies, for whatever reason, was just absolutely concerned with his physical health all week long. There was just some dietary restrictions, but she was on the ball all week long. But what you could see over the course of the week was her care, her genuine care, and her genuine concern for him, making it so that there was not one moment all week long that he didn't feel seen, where he knew that he was loved and he knew that he was cared for. Now, how much more believable is it that the Savior of the universe loves you?
That's right.
Than when you're completely immersed in that for a whole week. I mean, it was just incredible.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
So, any other parting thoughts or things from the trip that you want to make sure that people are aware of, or that you feel like, man, God showed me this, God did this, and I'm just so thankful. I just wanted to, say it out loud. You don't have to have one, but
Well,
you
I
got
did.
one.
I had something that I'd been praying about, and it was, again, kind of out of my comfort zone. Maybe I should be good at this, but I'm not. And I won't embarrass them, but I've had somebody that modeled this to me over the last 6 months. But I purposely tried to find time to speak with each college person in my group and just have a time to get to know a little bit more about them, some of the struggles they're having, and just if they wanted to share some prayer requests that I could pray for them about. Because that's a tough age. It's a tough age at any age, but I wasn't sure what kind of response I'd got, and it was very positive. They've got longer than I've got. I don't know how long I'll be their friend because I'm not sure how long I'll be here, but I've got a lot of new friends that are 20, 21 years old that we're praying for each other. And I shared some things they could pray for me about. And that was a special moment for me just because they opened up to that. And it was hard for me to do that. It really was. So
I believe that.
Anyway.
That's cool.
good.
And I would encourage everybody listening or watching today that this trip, and especially in this partnership with Northside, this is a new beginning, right?
Yeah.
This is so this was a beginning to a new work that God's doing in and through that church. And we need to be faithful in partnership with them in the gospel to continue to pray for them, continue to encourage them. And I know Andy and our college team and legacy class may do some follow-up things with them throughout the year. But just as a church in general, I want to challenge our people to continue to pray all the time for this work as they have influence and their salt and light in that community in Colorado Springs, which is crazy because some of the biggest Christian ministries in the United States are based out of Colorado Springs, and yet the culture there is so lost, right? And so for light to continue to shine in that area of the country, I think would be our challenge as a church moving forward in our partnership with them.
Absolutely. And I think just my last thing from the trip is the challenge for all of us heading into it is to leave yourself at home.
Yeah.
Right. There's, I believe I heard more than once, well, Weatherford Perla would, whatever, but Mission Trip Perla.
Colorado Perla loves green beans.
But
really?
Weatherford Perla.
Wow.
I don't like
You
green
don't like
beans.
beans?
And part of that was just, it's so much more obvious on a trip like this what that would mean. But then that's the call every day as a disciple of Christ. I wake up, I leave myself in bed, and then I go do the task that he has for me today, following him. And so hopefully, prayerfully, that momentum just continues for us as we keep going.
Amen.
Individually and collectively. And Rick, I'm about halfway between you and Perla on the spectrum, and it's so encouraging. It's so encouraging to see what perhaps the next couple of decades can look like in terms of the faithfulness of Christ in my life and in the life of my family. And that's what I desired for our students to see and to know that as we keep walking with Jesus, we can remain authentic, we can remain learners, and we can be disciple makers. And you, the ladies, the Dickinsons and John, y'all blessed our students as we all bless that church. And it's just such a God-honoring thing to be a part of. I'm so grateful to get to do this job.
That's so cool.
So that'll wrap us up for this time. Please make sure and subscribe to us wherever it is that you get your podcast.